Welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor, a podcast where I want to think more deeply with you about Christian faith and life. Hey, you believers, you non-believers, unaffiliated believers, sort of believers, you think I'm a believers? Welcome. All of you, you're the hope for humanity 9%ers. Welcome. Welcome, my non-university unstudents. Welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor. Over the last day or so, Tanya and I drove up to Ketchum, Idaho to celebrate my son John's birthday with him. While we were there, it was 24 degrees and cold, but it was fun because there was anywhere from 2 to 3 feet of snow on the side of the road. We lucked out because when we booked it, we didn't know that the Holiday Inn that we got for the night happened to be just across the street from the Sun Valley Ski Mountain. And it was so beautiful. We could see the gondola going up and down the hill, and the snow was just covering the trees and the whole scene. And this morning when we woke up at 7 a.m., it was snowing. It was just peaceful. It's peaceful and it's beautiful as long as you don't have to shovel it every day.
I heard that.
As long as you're not trying to do grocery shopping every day in it, right? It's beautiful.
I heard that.
But I grew up in Central Oregon, and as a kid, I just loved the snow. Well, Russia is a country famous for its snowy winters, and I want to tell you a story about a famous author named Fyodor Dostoevsky. Say Dostoevsky, class. Dostoevsky, teacher. Dostoevsky lived from 1821 to 1881. And when he was a young man, he was arrested on charges of sedition. Philip Yancey tells the story in his book, The Jesus I Never Knew. I read this a good 15, 20 years ago. Oh my goodness, you guys, what a great book. The Jesus I Never Knew. He tells the story about Dostoevsky being arrested. I want you to hear this. Early in his life, Dostoevsky underwent a virtual resurrection. He had been arrested for belonging to a group judged treasonous by Tsar Nicholas I, who, to impress upon the young parlor radicals the gravity of their errors, sentenced them to death and staged a mock execution. The conspirators were dressed in white death gowns and led to a public square where a firing squad awaited them. Blindfolded, robed in white burial shrouds, hands bound tightly behind them, they were paraded before a gawking crowd and then tied to posts. At the very last instant, as the order, "Ready, aim," was heard and rifles were cocked and lifted upward, a horseman galloped up with a prearranged message from the Tsar. He would mercifully commute their sentences to hard labor. Dostoevsky never recovered from this experience. He had peered into the jaws of death, and from that moment life became for him precious beyond all calculation. He said, "Now my life will change. I shall be born again in a new form." And as he boarded the convict train toward Siberia, a devout woman handed him a New Testament, the only book allowed in prison. Believing that God had given him, Dostoevsky, a second chance to fulfill his calling, he pored over that New Testament during his confinement. And after 10 years, he emerged from exile with unshakable Christian convictions, as expressed in one famous passage he wrote. Quote, "If anyone proved to me that Christ was outside the truth, then I would prefer to remain with Christ than with the truth." End quote. An amazing story of a man shown mercy, and he took that opportunity to get a new lease on life. His life had been spared, and he decided he wouldn't waste it any further. Oh, the grace of God. You guys, something happened to me involving the grace of God when I was 16 years old. And the Lord used that experience to entirely redirect my life. And today I want to tell you some of that story. I had bought a 1969 Camaro. And we went and had it repainted, and I put new tires and beautiful shiny metal wheels on it, and had a stereo system put in it. And I just loved that 69. I still love 69 Camaros today. They just have great lines to them. And it was a 353 speed. It sounded so good. And I worshiped that car as a 16-year-old. It represented so much for me. But it was just a cool car, too. Well, that same spring, my parents had decided that they were going to take me and my two brothers and my two stepbrothers and my sister all down to Disneyland for spring break. And they decided that they wanted to fly us all down. Well, my stepbrother David, he's a year older than me, he and I decided, man, it would be so much more fun if we could drive while we were in Los Angeles, because in our hometown, the thing to do was go cruising, and there were like 3 streets that you would cruise, and we thought, wow, could you imagine Los Angeles? There must be 100 streets. We were totally clueless that you can't just cruise Los Angeles, but nevertheless, we went upstairs and talked Mom and Dad into driving. And so on the day of the trip, everyone loaded up both cars, my 69 Camaro and my dad's, I think it was like 1972 huge land barge Chrysler. It was a beautiful blue Chrysler. And my dad and mom and sister and brothers all piled into that. And me and David piled into my 69 Camaro. We were leaving Bend, Oregon. We knew it was probably going to be about a 16-hour drive down there, and the family decided, Mom and Dad decided, that we would stop in Sacramento the first night, spend the night. And it was a beautiful day, a clear day, and we drove down through Klamath Falls and down south of Weed somewhere, as I remember it, California. We stopped and had lunch, and I had asked my stepbrother, Dave, do you mind driving? Because I was getting a little bit tired. We only had another couple hours to go before we were going to stop in Sacramento for the evening. And so we're driving along I-5 South, my dad and the family in the car in front of us, and Dave and I in my cool 69 Camaro behind him. We had the windows down, and we had rock and roll playing. In fact, I distinctly remember we were listening to Ted Nugent's album Cat Scratch Fever. We were so amped up. We were so excited. And as you get down there through Northern California, the I-5 starts to straighten out and the terrain starts to get flatter. And I remember Dad cruising along there on the freeway. We were right behind him, and he was going just fast enough to keep us adjacent to this beautiful little blue Volkswagen Bug. And I distinctly remember it being like Dodger blue. And everybody in the car, my brothers and sister in the car ahead of us, were turning around and looking out the rearview window and laughing at us because Dad was going just fast enough to keep us next to this Volkswagen Bug that had 2 pretty girls from the University of Oregon. And the only reason that we thought that was the case is that they had a bumper sticker on their car, the University of Oregon. And so he wouldn't go fast enough to let us get by them or slowing us where we wouldn't be next to them. He kept driving at just the right speed so we would keep being next to those pretty girls. And then I remember the girls taking a right, veering off to the right on some exit north of Sacramento that took them off towards San Francisco. And that was the last thing that I remembered when it happened. But first, it's time for some shouty outies. Do you enjoy the UU podcasts? Truly, I hope they enrich your week as well as help your thinking. I hope they're strengthening your pursuit of Christ in a world of intellectual chaos. And you guys, I want you to know there are some simple ways to support the show. First, I always cherish your prayers. Prayers for wisdom and the Lord's favor and His direction and His opening and closing of doors. Please, yes, say a prayer for the show for me. Second, a really easy way to promote the show, tell a friend. Do you have a friend who talks to you about how too much of their church experience is lightweight? How they miss their time in college of thinking and growing and going deeper? Well, tell them about the Uncensored Unprofessor. Third, an easy way to help out the show is through Facebook shares. Facebook shares are such a simple way to expose your friends, your family, your acquaintances that you know through Facebook to my show. And so today, thank you so much, Brother Bill, for that share. Can't tell you how happy I am that you're listening. Thank you, my friend Lydia. Really, thank you for that wonderful Facebook blurb. It wasn't just a share, it was an advertisement, and I want you to know I'm so thankful. But a fourth way to help me, you guys, is through Patreon. Patreon. If you pledge $5 or more a month, I'll send you some stickers and a UU coffee coaster. And for $20 a month, I'll send some stickers and a coaster and a coffee cup. But you guys, my unstudent crew, those $1 and $2 pledges are a blessing too. Patreon. It's an easy way to help me keep the show going. It's a simple way to encourage the dickens out of me. Those girls veering off to the right's the last thing I remembered. And what I'm going to tell you for most of the rest of this story has to do with all the things my family told me happened. Not long after they turned to the right and left the I-5 freeway, my brother and I in that green Camaro veered off to the side of the road and hit the gravel shoulder on the side of I-5. And either we overcorrected or the wheel caught, but we shot back to the left across both those southbound lanes, across the big grass median between the north and southbound parts of the freeway, and in the second lane, the farthest lane over to the right on the northbound side, a big Dodge Chrysler plowed into the side of my Camaro. My dad saw all this happening in the rearview mirror of his Chrysler and just started crying out, "Oh, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." And he pulled the car over to a stop. He got out, ran across the freeway to us, and my Camaro had gone over the side of the freeway and in through the grass shoulder and up next to some train tracks there. And Dad smelled the smell of new paint because my car had just been painted a couple months before. And he also smelled the odor of gas. And he was afraid the car was going to blow up. And so he got David out, who had been in the driver's seat, pulled him out, and then he pulled me out. But my right foot was trapped between the door and the console, the door and the stick shift. The impact of that Chrysler plowing broadside into our car pushed that door clear into the stick shift, and my foot was caught in there. Well, he pulled and pulled and pulled and finally got me out, and both of us were laying there unconscious on the side of that berm off to the side of the freeway. The traffic all stopped. Trucks were calling in on their CBs, radios, and people were running up to help, and we were laying there unconscious. While I was laying there, I had blood gushing out of the bottom of my right ankle because my left ankle, my left foot had been pretty much all but severed and dislocated, and there was tons of blood. My dad told my brother Jim, run back to the car and get some clothes because they wanted to use them as a tourniquet or to stop the bleeding. And I laid there. Again, I don't remember any of this. This is stuff that family has told me. But laying there bleeding on the side of the sperm. My stepmom said that a woman came up to her and said, I want you to know I'm praying for you. And my mom thanked her, and then when she looked back, the woman was gone. And sometimes our family has wondered if that was an angel or not. But they took us to the nearby hospital, and as it turned out, I ended up being in surgery for several hours that afternoon and into the evening. And after those several hours, the doctor came out to give my family an update. And when he saw my dad and began to tell him what's going on, my dad said, were you able to save his foot? Because Dad had seen how bad that dislocation, how bad that cut was. And the doctor said to him, Mr. Rybarczyk, we haven't got to his foot yet. We're trying to keep him alive. His spleen has been crushed, and it's bleeding into his lungs. We don't know if he's going to make it through the night. Now, that's an amazing thing to me, because a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks before the trip to Southern California, I was washing my Camaro. I worked at a car wash in town, and when things were slow, our boss didn't care if we washed our own car. And so I had the car there next to the office, and I was washing off my car. And I remember distinctly kneeling down in front of the front passenger side wheel, drying it off. And I was telling God, God, I want you to leave me alone. I'm not going to serve you. I know that you created me, but I'm not going to serve you. I don't want to follow you, so leave me alone. And I know that I might go to hell, but I'm not going to serve you. So stop. And there I was that night, teetering upon life and death, at least as far as the doctor was concerned. Well, if you're a critical thinker, you are going to have figured this out already. I did live through that first night. They kept me alive. They put me in intensive care for, I think it was about 3 days or so, and I had tubes going in and out of every orifice possible in my body, including I was on a ventilator, and under heavy sedation, I was scribbling notes to people across those 3 days. Eventually, they removed the ventilator and moved me to my own room on the hospital, and I was in there for about 10 days. And as they would come in, they would sit me up to feed me because they wanted to get me stronger. And I would tell them, that really hurts my back. And they would say, well, we'll lower the bed back down as soon as you eat something, because they wanted me to gain strength through some nourishment. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to eat until you lay me back down. The pain in my lower back was really bad. Well, they already knew that I had broken a collarbone. I had cracked 5 ribs. I had an enormous black eye. My right eye had hit this dangling crystal ball. Back in the hippie days, in the 60s and 70s, we used to have these crystal balls that would dangle from the mirror, and they'd throw all kinds of pretty lights all over the car. And my eye had hit that ball in the accident, and I had a massive black eye. So again, I had the broken collarbone, 5 broken ribs, and a broken pelvis. And a spleen that had been removed. And during one of those 10 days, a surgeon came in and was putting a cast on my left foot. I remember he came in like at 2 a.m. to put a cast on my left foot because he was the surgeon who had sewn together my left foot, tendons and however they went about putting all that back together, even including hooking up some of the major nerves. I was in that hospital 10 days. And then a man from Bend, Oregon, a friend of my dad's, he ran a funeral home up there. His name was Paul Reynolds. And he flew down in his little Piper Cub and picked up me and my stepmom and flew us back to Central Oregon, back to Bend, Oregon. And that was at about the 2-week mark since the accident. When I got to Bend, Oregon, my hometown doctor, Dr. Corrigan, immediately had the ambulance take me to the hospital where they x-rayed my whole body. And if you can believe it, during those x-rays, they found that I had 3 crushed vertebrae in my lower back. And the doctor said, this is really severe, really bad. Any one of those times they were sitting you up in that hospital, you could have been paralyzed from the waist down. Well, that was terrifying news to me and my whole family. And so they said, we need to do major surgery on your back. We need to fuse those vertebrae together, but you're not strong enough yet. So I had to wait. And this was the old days because they would never do this now. But I had to wait 6 weeks to have that back surgery. So that meant from the time of the accident to that surgery, I had been in the hospital for 2 months. When you're 16, 2 days is a long time. Imagine 2 months. So they flew this doctor in from Portland, and he did a kind of, as it turns out, a kind of fusion surgery. And a few days after the surgery, they put me in a body cast. They laid me on this table, and 2 different doctors with nurses helping them wrap this body cast. It went all the way around my torso, under my armpits, clear down my torso, and then down my left leg to the top of my knee, because they wanted to immobilize both that broken pelvis on the left side and those 3 vertebrae that they fused together with some rods in my lower back. I think it was about 2 more weeks after that I got out of the hospital, which meant that I had been in the hospital for 2 months, 2.5 months. Then I had back surgery. Then I wore that body cast for 4 months. And I don't know what has happened with their weather in the last 40 years or so, but in 1978, that was the hottest summer in Central Oregon history. We did not have air conditioning in our home, and I was in that body cast for those 4 months across that summer. When I finally got out of that turtle shell, is what it was like, they gave me a back brace. It was like a bunch of belts and Velcro that I strapped on this back brace, and I was finally able to go back to my car wash job and work. But because I had missed so much school, I had to go back and repeat my junior year of high school. Now, it's an amazing thing to me, again, because I had almost died that night, but even more that I had almost died that night and almost lost my left foot and was almost paralyzed from the waist down. After I had told God, leave me alone, I'm not going to serve you. Even if you send me to hell and judge me and send me to hell, I'm not going to serve you. I don't want to follow you. All of that, and God spared my life that night. God could have answered those angry prayers. God could have said, okay, you got it, to my rash words. But he didn't. Sort of like Tsar Nicholas I of Dostoevsky, who was on the firing line of execution. He didn't. God spared me. God not only spared my life, he spared me the use of my left foot, and he spared me being able to be active and to not be paralyzed from the waist down. The Lord used that event in my life to redirect my entire life. And I got to be honest with you, it wasn't like right after the wreck I suddenly repented and then just decided, okay, I'm going to follow God now. It was a process of several months that took, and honestly, a process of several years that took for me to fully want to devote myself and give myself to pursuing the Lord. But God showed me grace not only when I didn't deserve it, but when I had told him to leave me alone. And he still wouldn't leave me alone. And if you're listening today, he doesn't intend to leave you alone. Following some famous Christian writer, he's the hound of heaven. And he'll keep coming after you. Just like he came after me, he's not done with you. You feel like he's taken his hands off your life? He's not done with you. You feel like he doesn't hear you anymore? He's not done with you. Keep calling out to him. Keep going after him, and he will come after you. He's the beautiful hound of heaven. What are my takeaways from that 1978 near-death experience? What are the things that have been steady, the lessons that I've learned in a steady fashion across all of those years? Well, the first is that life is a gift from God. Don't take it for granted. I've now been alive an extra 41 years. Since that Thursday afternoon on March 16, 1978, I've had 41 extra years of work, love, laughter, play, family, worship, learning, sharing, thinking, making friends, eating, reading. 41 years of extra. And because of that 41 years, inside of that 41 years, I've been married 33 years. 33 years of partnership, relationship. Honestly, iron sharpening iron. Moving through life with someone who shares my deepest values. And inside that 41 years, now, in just a couple weeks, I'll be 1 full year since major back surgery. Doctors went in a year ago to fix that fusion, to make it better, stronger, clearer, better. And I'm getting stronger every day. I'm getting just a tiny bit more agile every month. And all of that is a gift from God. Don't take it for granted. Every breath is a gift. Every taste of coffee. Every look into someone's green. Think of all the people I met in Ukraine with beautiful green eyes. Or every time you look into those brown eyes. Or every time you see those blue eyes. My granddaughter has beautiful blue eyes. Every time you get to look into those gorgeous black eyes is a gift. Every opportunity to laugh, it's a gift. Every time you get to hear music, or smell a flower, or read a book, or take a shower, because some of you listening today, you need a shower. Every time you get to eat a meal, or go on a walk, or dance, or exercise, or golf, or ski, or hike, or ride your horse, or watch a movie. Every time you get to see a sunrise or a sunset or the ocean or mountains or rivers or trees. Every bath that you get to give to your little kid. Every meal you make and share for your wife, every meal you make and share for your husband, it's all a gift. Cherish every bit of it as a gift from God Himself. Life is a gift from God. Don't take it for granted. Another takeaway that has informed my whole life because of that accident: live your life with gratitude. Thankful people are happier people. That's true even for people who are not religious. Studies show that people who are thankful, they just live happier lives. Although religion gives us a someone transcendent toward whom to be thankful, God, the living God, gives us a someone toward whom we can express our gratitude. But thank Him when you wake up in the morning. Thank Him when your head hits the pillow at night. Thank Him before meals. Thank Him when you're driving to work. Thank Him that you can drive to work. Oh my gosh, when I was in my body cast, I would watch my brothers playing out in the driveway, and I would sit there and cry because I wanted to be out there with them. I didn't want to be paralyzed and rendered incapacitated in that body cast. I would have given big money just to be able to go out and mow the lawn. So go mow your lawn with gratitude. Wash the car with gratitude in your heart. It's not infrequent that I'm washing the car and I'm thankful to the Lord I can wash the car. It's pretty common that I'm doing the dishes and I'm thanking the Lord that I can do the dishes. Live your life with gratitude. It will just generate a peace. It will generate a pleasant nature about you, and people will get that. And then third, serve God out of that gratitude. Look for ways to benefit others. Look for simple ways to extend kindness, right? Hold the door for someone. This woman had her arms full of gear today walking into the hotel. I was happy to hold the door for her. She actually had a cup of coffee stacked on top of that armload of gear, and I said, "Oh my goodness, let me get this for you. I don't want you spilling that coffee." Smile at a stranger. I did that the other day to a lady as she was walking in the store, and she looked at me like I was a creeper, like I was following her or something. But you know what? That's okay. Smile. Share some simple kindness. Out of that gratitude, find commonplace ways to worship the Lord. One way, it's too infrequent among evangelicals, a simple, wonderful way to worship the Lord: use your mind for Him. Train your mind for Him. Upon his imprisonment, Dostoevsky took to reading and studying the New Testament as a way to honor Christ, as a way to say thank you to God. He ended up falling in love with Christ as he did that. You? Please go read some serious books that plunges you, that plunge you deeper into your faith. Some book that inspires your walk. Some book that digs your foundations into Christ more deeply. You need the name of a book like that? Email me at uncensoredunprofessor.com. But find commonplace ways that you can worship the Lord and serve Him out of gratitude. Or here's another commonplace way to show the Lord some gratitude. Serve others. Do it unto the least. Help the poor. Tanya and I support several missionary ventures. We've done that our whole married lives. We feel like it's an essential part of our following after Christ to support missionaries. But we also support a poor family in Kosovo through a ministry called Mercy Ministries. They used to be called Eastern European Outreach. Today they're called Mercy Ministries. And they are a wonderful, and there's lots of agencies like them, but Mercy Ministries supports poor folks in Eastern Europe, and the family that we support is in Kosovo. part of Serbia or not. Kosovo's trying to gain its own independence. And that family has several kids and not much by way of an income. And it gives us joy. We believe it's the heart of Christ to give to the poor. Find commonplace ways to worship the Lord. Am I grateful for that automobile accident? Well, honestly, I would have preferred not to have had back pain for 40 years or ankle pain for 40 years or the struggle of all of that for 40 years. But I'm grateful that the Lord used that in my life. I'm grateful that the Lord showed me such amazing mercy. He showed me such amazing grace. And so the master, the big uptake of it all is yes. I'm grateful for that accident. I don't like pain. I rarely pray prayers, Lord, bring on the pain. I don't know about you, but I'm not inclined to pray prayers like that. But the Lord can shape us and grow us and strengthen us and refine us through pain. So thank you, God, not for pain, but thank you for being God in the midst of pain. Thank you, my listener, for tuning in today. May the Lord be with you and strengthen you. May He cause His face to shine upon you and bless your coming and going. I'm so grateful for you. And please turn your brains on, everybody.